Hey guys, today's video is about sharing the best possible advice I can give you when it comes to caring for your Stromanthe Tristar. In this video, I'm going to be sharing 5 tips, care tips, or considerations that are crucial when it comes to caring for these plants. Now, you may be expecting most of these tips, but I've been sure to include a few in there that are super crucial to caring for these plants that you may not be aware of. Now, if you have any questions or comments along the way, don't hesitate to leave a comment down below. So these are the 5 things that you ought to know when it comes to caring for your Stromanthe Tristar. I haven't listed these in any particular order, and they're definitely not in order of importance. But basically, all of these things are super important when it comes to caring for these houseplants, especially so they can thrive and flourish. The Stromanthe Tristar is a part of the prayer plant family. Now, it gets the Tristar name or Tricolor name from the beautiful foliage, the 3 colors that are on it, the green, the more of the yellow, and that pink. Now, this has to be absolutely one of my favorite pink houseplants, of course, because of that touch of pink, and also because on the reverse of the foliage, you get that beautiful sort of dark burgundy pink color, which is just fantastic. Now, believe it or not, I've had this plant since it was basically in a 4-inch pot that I bought from a nursery, and now it's reaching in and around that 1 to 2 feet size, so it's nearing its full size, that maturity level, and I think these can get as big as 2 to 3 feet sort of wide and tall, and that's about as big as they will get. Thanks for checking out this video. I'm Tyler, and if you like what you're seeing or you find this video to be useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, or better yet, you can hit that subscribe button. Now, to really show me some love, click on the bell for alerts and notifications for future content, and don't forget to check out my merch store, tylermossop.com, or simply click the store tab. And of course, the prayer plant part refers to the fact that these do kind of, the foliage does shift up during the evening when there is less light, and then they fold back down during the day to absorb all of that light, and that's kind of makes it look like praying hands and like it's praying, and that's where that name prayer plant comes. There are also Marantas that fall into that same category of prayer plants. Done a ton of videos on those, so if you're interested in that, please check out this link right here. All right, guys, this actually brings me to my first thing that you ought to know, and that is, why are the tips of my Stromanthe Tristar browning or getting dried up and curling? Now, this is a really common problem, and it's not for the reason that you probably think or expect it may be. So one big factor in getting these brown curling tips on your leaves could be to the water that you're using to water these plants. Now, if that water that you're using has a lot of higher levels of chlorine or fluoride or those types of minerals or chemicals in it, that is basically what's causing the browning tips and the curling. So it may not actually be due to the conditions like light or the quantity or frequency of water, but more about the composition of the water that you're using. Now, there are some really simple fixes when it comes to this issue. What you can do is you can leave your tap water out overnight, and that will help dissipate some of the fluoride and chloride. Or you could, if you really wanted to, use some filtered water, and that should really help ensure lessening the amount of brown and curling tips you have on this plant. The next tip that I want to share with you guys is in and around the soil type and the soil composition that you use for this house plant. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to use a soil mix that is well draining, that's breathable or has that breathability to it, but you also want a soil mix that is going to be able to retain some level of moisture, just because of what these plants enjoy and what they need. So if you're interested in finding out exactly what type of soil composition and the ingredients I used, check out this video right here that I did when I came to repotting my Stromanthe Tristar. That should be really useful, but ensuring that, like I said, it's well draining, it does retain some moisture, and it's got some lightness and breathability to it is super, super important so that this plant can really grow and get to that level of maturity. All right, guys, so next up is watering. Now, I kind of alluded to this when I talked about the soil composition, and I think watering and just generally caring for this plant in terms of water can be one of the trickiest, most complicated things when it comes to caring for this particular houseplant. Now, what you want to kind of keep top of mind is that you're watering this plant so that the soil and the the soil and the root system, that it's not completely drying out, but also that you're not waterlogging the plant or overwatering it. So you kind of do have to find this sort of happy medium or this balance between, overwatering and underwatering. And I think using the correct soil type so that it does have good drainage, using a container that has a saucer and a nice large drainage hole will really help allow the water to flow through. Now, retaining some of that moisture definitely comes down to the soil composition, but it also comes down to the frequency and the amount of water you're using to water your Stromanthe Tristar. Now, obviously, watering is a function of the amount of light that your plant receives, and we'll touch on light in a minute, but ultimately you want to make sure that if your plant is getting the good bright indirect light that it should be, that you're watering it consistently enough so that the soil isn't drying out. So you can use the finger test, poke your finger in the top of the topsoil, and if it is dry, then that is a really good indication that it's a good time to water this plant. Now, in terms of how much water, it really depends on, again, how much light, the size of the plant, and all of those things. So important things to consider when it comes to watering. And again, if you missed that really important crucial tip at the beginning of this video, when it comes to the browning tips, the type of water that you're using to water your Stromanthe Tristar or Tricolor is kind of important, because if there is that chlorine or fluoride, in the water, by leaving that water, tap water, out overnight, or by using filtered water, you're really going to alleviate or avoid the browning tips on the plant. Next up is light, and what I can tell you when it comes to the ideal conditions for this plant, or for any plant that matter, any house plant, you want to do your best to mimic the lighting conditions that they would receive, obviously in nature. And for these plants, these are plants that would really ultimately at the end of the day appreciate and do best in dapple light. That's where it's getting hits of good bright indirect light, or just some direct sunlight, and hits of shade to give that sort of dappled effect. What I found in my experience is providing really good bright indirect light is really key for this plant. If it's not getting enough light, I've kind of found that it's not really doing its best or living its best life, if you will. So when it comes to lighting, if you can, dapple light. If not, you want to provide some great bright indirect light for your Stromanthe Tristar. Now, finally, guys, the last crucial tip that I want to share with you when it comes to caring for your Stromanthe Tristar or Tricolor is fertilization. Now, you don't want to overdo it. You definitely want to fertilize this plant. So what I recommend that you use is a well-balanced diluted liquid fertilizer every few weeks, every 2 weeks tops, and that's really going to allow your houseplant to just really grow, develop, and get to a good large size. Now, like I said, it really was, I'm gonna try to find a picture or a clip of it. It was in a 4-inch pot that I bought from a nursery, and over the course of the last few years, it's really grown and developed into this huge, lovely, beautiful plant. So fertilization is definitely something that I recommend. Just don't overdo it. Well, that's it for me. Definitely leave a comment down below. Hit that subscribe button if you already aren't subscribed to my channel. And check out my merch store, tylermossop.com. Miss you guys already. Until the next one.